Hello guys, welcome back to some leveling while we wait for the other realm to go live.
Hello, Little Masters, and welcome to the Prancing Pony Podcast.
West do howl, my friends. I'm Sean Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, the Aragorn to my AMR, Alan Sisto.
Welcome to a special episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast in honor of Tolkien Reading Day. Back in 2003, the Tolkien Society began organizing this event, held on March 25th, in commemoration of the date of the downfall of Sauron and the fall of Barad-dûr.
Indeed, and each year they choose a different theme, encouraging fans to celebrate and promote the works of Tolkien by reading their favorite passages. This year's theme is life, death, and immortality.
Indeed. Well, the theme was chosen by the Tolkien Society to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the Battle of the Somme. Earlier this month, you might remember, my solo episode was on the influence of World War I on Tolkien's works. Certainly, the Great War shaped part of his outlook on life, death, mortality, and immortality.
Absolutely, and you did a fantastic job covering that, Alan. Thank you very much for that. This is actually going to be a little bit different episode than usual. We're going to be reading longer passages, and surprisingly from us, a little bit less discussion. After all, this is Tolkien Reading Day, not Alan and Sean Talking Day.
I don't think any society is going to be creating an Alan and Sean Talking Day anytime soon.
Maybe someday. Maybe someday. But first, before we begin, why don't we take a look and see if Barliman's mailbag has anything?
Good idea, Sean. What do we got?
Well, let's see. So we've actually got one here from Maya in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Maya sent this one in a couple of weeks ago, along with a lovely
May the light
Sindarin
protect
greeting.
you this
so,
day.
Maya, if you're listening, I'll be emailing you next time I have a language question. But Maya says, as good as the Lord of the Rings films are, due to time constraints, there are some things they had to leave out. Unfortunately for me, some of these were my favorite parts of the books. Yeah, I certainly agree with that.
I agree.
Personally, of all the legendarium, she says, the part that resonates most with me is the tales of the glory of Numenor and its corruption, the escape and new glory of the Dunedain, and the fading glory of the Dunedain and their eventual renewal. Because of this, I love anything Ranger of the North related. If I could add back any one thing, it would be the Grey Company.
Ooh.
She asks if we could add anything back to the films that was left out, what would it be and why?
Well, she hits on something there for sure with the Grey Company. As amazing as that scene was in the films, okay, setting aside the Mountain of Skulls, I just don't want to go there. As scary as it was, as much as you felt Gimli's fear and as much as you felt Aragorn's strength of leadership, it doesn't compare to the books. In the books, he leads a squad of 30 men and their horses into the paths of the dead. I mean, there's just more there, I think.
Right.
And
I mean, you see that he's got friends, he's got allies from the north. You know, there's Halbarad of the Rangers of the North.
Yeah.
Rumor is that Tabitha.
He's not the only one.
Right.
You always get the feel like he must be the only ranger, whereas it's clear in the books that there are several of them, and they're all watching the borders of the Shire, and they're all protecting that region, and now they're all there to help serve at Aragorn's side.
Yeah, you get a sense that Aragorn's actually been a leader before.
Yes.
You know, and and he has. I mean, his title is Chieftain of the Dunedain.
Yeah. He's there's also the inclusion of Elladan and Elro here, Elrond's sons, who you know, they're the ones who bring the banner that he ends up flying on. Well, spoiler alerts, but we've all seen the movie, so I don't think that's going to count. He brings the banner. They bring the banner, I should say, that we see in the films that Elrond brings,
right?
Along with the message that they bring from Arwen. So it's a little bit more poignant, a little bit more powerful. So I definitely agree with her on that. I would say if I get to add one other thing to that, I know you probably have a few others. I would say the Scouring of the Shire. I know it would have made Return of the King like 18 hours long, especially on TNT with all the commercials. But there's so much more character development in the Hobbits when we bring in the Scouring of the Shire. That's especially true of Merry and Pippin, but it's even more so of Sam, I think. And it would have been great to see Saruman's death the way it really was. He was made out to be this. In the books, you end up seeing this character progression from the man who is in charge of Isengard, I should say the wizard in charge of Isengard and all these Uruk-hai trying to wipe out the world of man.
Right.
And when he's depowered, defanged, if you will, he becomes just this beggar in the wilderness. And he realizes he has nothing to do. He can't do anything. Oh, wait, I can mess up these people's lives. I mean, he has no good to do. This is just a petty little tantrum.
He's just kicking over sandcastles
Exactly.
on the beach at this point.
That's exactly right. Stealing candy from babies. I mean,
right,
he's just,
right.
You know, how easy is it to do something wrong to the hobbits when the Rangers are all away doing their job?
Right. That's true. Yeah.
To tie that in.
Yeah. And
But
I know that, you know, I definitely had this conversation with friends back in 2003 and 2004 about how, you know, a lot of people
May the light
thought Return
protect
of
you
the King
this
was already
day.
too long, had too many
Through
endings.
rigorous
Well, it did have
retraining,
too many
I have
endings.
had to
It
break
did have
many.
too many endings. And I can certainly understand that from you know, just a general
cinematic standpoint,
general
definitely.
audience perspective. But I'm with you. I missed seeing that growth, that culmination of that growth that the hobbits picked up on their quest.
I think we also see more of the not despair is really the wrong word. More of the emptiness of Frodo. You know, his his life post Ring is very different, and you can see that carrying a burden around has just taken all of his strength, all of his energy, and it's why he desperately needs to end up in the Undying Lands, or at least in Tol Eressëa, for a little bit, you know, before the end of his life. But he just didn't have anything left to give. He had given literally everything he had, and we see that more in the books with the Scouring of the Shire and a little bit of the timeline after.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
I know cinematically, I get why Peter Jackson made that decision, but certainly that was something I would have liked to have seen. How about you? What are something you would have liked to have seen?
Well, I mean, you've definitely hit on some good ones. I would add to that, because you talk about, you know, things that had to change cinematically. One of my favorite passages in the book is the Barrow Downs in Fellowship of the Ring.
Definitely.
It's one of my favorite scenes. It's some of the scariest stuff that Tolkien ever wrote.
Gave me nightmares first time I read it.
Yeah, and it's creepy, it's quiet, it's very eerie in a way that nothing else in Fellowship, certainly not the first half of Fellowship, is.
No.
Because the first half of Fellowship is still very light, much in sort of the same voice as The Hobbit. And so the Barrow Downs is just one of those, not counting the Black Riders, but the Barrow Downs is one of those early scenes where you really see that stuff is going to get really, really scary before the end here.
Yeah, definitely.
And for people who maybe aren't familiar with Peter Jackson's work outside of the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies, he actually was a horror director before he took on that project. And so I think he would have done some really cool stuff with the Barrow Downs.
Oh, that disembodied hand. Oh, that would have.
Yeah. And he did. I think he did some of that stuff. It seems like he maybe used some similar imagery when you get things like the attack of the Nazgul on Weathertop and.
They kind of look a little bit like you'd imagine the Barrow-wights to look when he's in the other world.
I think so. And there's the bony hand from the Witch King there.
True.
But
good point.
it just would have been cool to see the Barrow Downs, because I just love it.
But they couldn't have done that without Tom Bombadil, and you knew they were never going to include Tom.
That's exactly it. You bring me back to sort of what was my point there, which was that it would have slowed down the early pacing. Yeah. You know, in the movie, they really needed to get the hobbits to Bree as quickly as they could.
That's true.
To the Prancing Pony, so that they could meet Aragorn, and they cut out Tom Bombadil for that reason. And as you said, there would have been no way for them to get out without Tom Bombadil.
Movie's over. No Tom Bombadil. You're dead.
Right.
Sorry, hobbits are gone now. Go home.
That would have been horrible.
And the movie's over. Sauron takes over the world. It's done.
Yeah, right. But in addition to that one, I guess I did have one other one. Éowyn, especially Éowyn's, really the whole arc of Éowyn, including her romance with Faramir. Éowyn gets a lot of good stuff in the movies. Yeah,
she gets more stuff in the movies. I mean, she gets significantly more airtime than she did in the books. At first, I didn't know what she meant by that.
Right. Now, well, yeah, I mean, and especially in Two Towers, she gets a ton of stuff. And in Return of the King too. But one of the things that I felt was lacking was any real ending to her arc.
That's a good point.
And I think you get that in the books, you get that in the Houses of Healing when she meets Faramir. In the theatrical cut of the movie, you don't see any of that.
No,
she falls on the Pelennor fields, and you don't see her again until the very end, the coronation.
Yeah.
The extended edition, they added some stuff back in. You do see her meet Faramir, and there's some couple of really kind of quick edit scenes of okay, they're falling in love, but it just didn't
very quick.
It was, and I just kind of felt like all the time we spent with her, that they sort of padded out her arc, sort of ended up kind of not feeling completely fulfilled for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they did give her a lot. In fact, they gave her stuff that she wasn't supposed to have, like Faramir's Dream and a number of other lines. But one of my favorite lines, I think I mentioned, I don't know, a couple episodes ago, was the line where she tells the herb master that those without swords may still die upon them, and that it takes but one foe to breed a war. I love that line. I love that the recognition of that philosophy that war in defense is perfectly just. But yeah, and she was the perfect character to deliver that line. But no,
well, and she gives a similar line to Aragorn, doesn't she? In Two Towers,
does she? Oh yeah, you're right. She does. That tells you I haven't watched the movies in a long time. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, your co-host is not paying attention. I blame it on the time change. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's
for 500, Alex.
Yeah. Here in the United States, we're going through a very, very challenging time change.
Yeah, I don't know
we do
if
twice a year, but it hurts us.
It's much worse in the spring.
Yes.
Do other countries really do that, or is it just us? I'm telling you.
I don't know that it's just us,
but yeah, so anyway, I agree with you, and you're right. She did say that in the Two Towers to Aragorn,
but it didn't have the same impact.
No, because it wasn't talking about the war in Minas Tirith, and that was what the herb master was complaining about, and basically, oh, this is so sad that we're having this horrible war, and we should just. I don't know what he wanted to do. Roll over and capitulate. This was you couldn't even be Neville Chamberlain to the orcs, and I mean, what are you going to do? Give him a Thillion and just say, just don't attack us? It's not going to work.
You really are still in World War I mode, aren't you?
Well, Neville Chamberlain would be more World War II mode, but
was he?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Well, now I'm blaming that on.
Yeah, he was.
All right.
World War I. I mean, he definitely wasn't around much. No, it was pre-World War II. The appeasement of Hitler would have been Neville Chamberlain's role. So
daylight savings time. That's what it is.
Savings time. We're gonna get so much mail, Sean. So much mail.
I know.
Man, you guys are bad. Can we replace you with somebody better? Well, no. That's the whole point. It's us.
I don't have time to read history. I'm reading Tolkien.
Well. That does it for Barlowin's mailbag. I think it's time for us to actually get into our Tolkien Reading Day episode. Sean and I drew straws, and I drew the short straw, so I'm going first. Actually, I think that means, audience, you drew the short straw. The theme, of course, like we talked about, is life, death, and immortality. I decided that what I would do is look at two of my favorite characters in terms of just the level of interest and the level of contrast between them. And that is Theoden and Denethor, and how they respond to life and death. In this case, I'm actually going to be analogizing life and death to two things that are very similar. I'm going to be talking about how hope is very, very similar to life, and how despair is very similar to death. In fact, you'll see that despair always leads to death, and that hope may lead to death, but it's a little different. It leads to a different kind of death. Let's put it this way. It leads more to life, but the willingness to give up that life in the right set of circumstances, as we'll see with Theoden. So
great.
We're not going to discuss a bunch. We're going to, inject a little bit of commentary here and there, but mostly we're going to be reading, because it's Tolkien Reading Day, not Alan and Sean Talking Day.
That's right.
So join with us.
I can't wait. Yeah.
Start with King of the Golden Hall, and right in the middle of the chapter here. And we're going to start with right after Wormtongue has been upset by the fact that they didn't take Gandalf's staff. "Now, Theoden, son of Thengel, will you hearken to me?" said Gandalf. "Do you ask for help?" He lifted his staff and pointed to a high window. There, the darkness seemed to clear, and through the opening could be seen, high and far, a patch of shining sky. "Not all is dark. Take courage, Lord of the Mark, for better help you will not find. No counsel have I to give to those that despair. Yet counsel I could give, and words I could speak to you. Will you hear them? They are not for all ears. I bid you come out before your doors and look abroad. Too long have you sat in shadows and trusted to twisted tales and crooked promptings." Slowly Theoden left his chair. A faint light grew in the hall again. The woman hastened to the king's side, taking his arm. And with faltering steps the old man came down from the dais and paced softly through the hall. Wormtongue remained lying on the floor. They came to the doors, and Gandalf knocked. "Open," he cried. "The Lord of the Mark comes forth." The doors rolled back, and a keen air came whistling in. A wind was blowing on the hill. "Send your guards down to the stairs' foot," said Gandalf. "And you, lady, leave him a while with me. I will care for him." "Go, Eowyn's sister-daughter," said the old king. "The time for fear is past." And then skipping a bit, Gandalf tells him, "Now, Lord," said Gandalf, "look out upon your land. Breathe the free air again." From the porch upon the top of the high terrace, they could see beyond the stream the green fields of Rohan fading into distant gray. Curtains of wind-blown rain were slanting down. The sky above and to the west was still dark with thunder, and lightning far away flickered among the tops of hidden hills. But the wind had shifted to the north, and already the storm that had come out of the east was receding, rolling away southward to the sea. Suddenly, through a rent in the clouds behind them, a shaft of sun stabbed down. The falling showers gleamed like silver, and far away the river glittered like a shimmering glass. "It is not so dark here," said Theoden. "No," said Gandalf, "nor does age lie so heavily on your shoulders as some would have you think. Cast aside your prop." From the king's hand the black staff fell clattering on the stones. He drew himself up, slowly, as a man that is stiff from long bending over some dull toil. Now tall and straight he stood, and his eyes were blue as he looked into the opening sky. "Dark have been my dreams of late," he said, "but I feel as one new awakened. I would now that you had come before, Gandalf, for I fear that already you have come too late, only to see the last days of my house. Not long now shall stand the high hall which Brego, son of Eorl, built. Fire shall devour the high seat. What is to be done?" And then we see, a little bit later, when Hama had been summoned and had gone, Gandalf led Theoden to a stone seat, and then sat himself before the king upon the topmost stair. Aragorn and his companions stood nearby. "There is no time to tell all that you should hear," said Gandalf. "Yet if my hope is not cheated, a time will come ere long when I can speak more fully. Behold, you are come into a peril greater even than the wit of Wormtongue could weave into your dreams. But see, you dream no longer. You live. Gondor and Rohan do not stand alone. The enemy is strong beyond our reckoning, yet we have a hope at which he has not guessed." Quickly now Gandalf spoke. His voice was low and secret, and none save the king heard what he said. But ever as he spoke, the light shone brighter in Theoden's eye, and at the last he rose from his seat to his full height, and Gandalf beside him, and together they looked out from the high place toward the east. "Verily," said Gandalf, now in a loud voice, keen and clear, "that way lies our hope, where sits our greatest fear. Doom hangs still on a thread, yet hope there is still, if we can but stand unconquered for a little while." The others, too, now turned their eyes eastward. Over the sundering leagues of land far away they gazed to the edge of sight, and hope and fear bore their thoughts still on, beyond dark mountains to the land of shadow. Where now was the ring-bearer? How thin indeed was the thread upon which doom still hung! It seemed to Legolas, as he strained his far-seeing eyes, that he caught a glint of white. Far away, perchance, the sun twinkled on a pinnacle of the Tower of Guard, and further still, endlessly remote and yet a present threat, there was a tiny tongue of flame. Slowly Theoden sat down again, as if weariness still struggled to master him against the will of Gandalf. He turned and looked at his great house. "Alas," he said, "that these evil days should be mine, and should come in my old age, instead of that peace which I have earned. Alas for Boromir the Brave! The young perish, and the old linger, withering." He clutched his knees with his wrinkled hands. "Your fingers would remember their old strength better if they grasped a sword hilt," said Gandalf. And then skipping a little bit, "Will you not take the sword?" said Gandalf. Slowly Theoden stretched forth his hand. As his fingers took the hilt, it seemed to the watchers that Firmness and strength returned to his thin arm. Suddenly he lifted the blade and swung it shimmering and whistling in the air. Then he gave a great cry. His voice rang clear as he chanted in the tongue of Rohan a call to arms. Arise now, arise, riders of Theoden. Dire deeds awake, dark is it eastward. Let horse be bridled, horn be sounded. Forth, Eorlingus. The guards, thinking that they were summoned, sprang up the stair. They looked at their lord in amazement, and then as one man they drew their swords and laid them at his feet. Command us, they said. Westu Theoden Hal, cried Eomer. It is a joy to us to see you return into your own. Never again shall it be said, Gandalf, that you come only with grief. Take back your sword, Eomer, sister's son, said the king. Go, Hama, and seek my own sword. Grima has it in his keeping. Bring him to me also. Now, Gandalf, you said that you had counsel to give if I would hear it. What is your counsel? You have yourself already taken it, answered Gandalf. To put your trust in Eomer rather than in a man of crooked mind. To cast aside regret and fear. To do the deed at hand. Every man that can ride should be sent west at once, as Eomer counseled you. We must first destroy the threat of Saruman while we have time. If we fail, we fall. If we succeed, then we will face the next task. Meanwhile, your people that are left, the women and the children and the old, should fly to the refuges that you have in the mountains. Were they not prepared against just such an evil day as this? Let them take provision, but delay not, nor burden themselves with treasures great or small. It is their lives that are at stake. This counsel seems good to me now, said Theoden. And then again, skipping a little bit. Do not delay, Theoden, when we are gone. Lead your people swiftly to the hold of Dunharrow in the hills. Nay, Gandalf, said the king. You do not know your own skill in healing. It shall not be so. I myself will go to war, to fall in the front of the battle if it must be. Thus shall I sleep better. Now there's more, but in that chapter that's it. And I've got a few notes that are really relevant, I think, as we look at maybe the next section. Going back to the beginning of that, there was a line that Gandalf said, or he said, no counsel have I to give to those that despair. And it was in reading that I realized how closely tied despair and death are, and that hope and life are always linked in Tolkien's works. Theoden's response here is central of that. It is indicative of that hope and not of despair. Even though he may die, and he knows it, and even though, of course, we know, having seen it and read it, that he does, he embraces life, knowing full well that in doing so he may still die. And I think that's significantly different than what we see in terms of the death of others who give into despair.
It's like he knows he may die, but before he dies, he wants to actually live again.
Exactly. Well,
and actually ride to war.
Yeah, and make his life worth having been lived.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all going to die. Well, men. I suppose the elves, it's a little different, and it would have been a very different conversation had we been talking about that. But, comparing Denethor and Theoden, we're talking about two mortal men, both of whose lifespans are finite. And the question isn't, am I going to die? The question is, what am I going to do with my life?
Mm-hmm.
And Theoden here finally reaches the end of his despair, and instead of doing what Denethor does at the end of his despair, he turns the corner.
Right.
And that's the difference between the two of them. There's a lot. There's a few other pieces that really stood out to me. One was the line where Gandalf is saying, if we can but stand unconquered for a little while. That's all he's talking about doing here. This isn't necessarily about victory. I mean, victory would be great, but there is hope so long as we can stand unconquered for a bit.
And that's the fate of mortal men, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? You're right.
We will all die, but it's how long can we stand unconquered, and what can we do while not necessarily just the time, but what can we do while we're standing unconquered?
Yeah. What can we do to defeat evil, really? Because that's exactly what this is about.
Yeah.
There's another line in here that really grabbed me, and I have to say I don't think it grabbed me before in this same way. But he talks about, this is when he says, "Alas, that these evil days should be mine." Really made me think of Frodo talking about how I wish the ring had never come to me. It's this just a little bit of regret that I wish it hadn't been this way. I mean, I'm still going to deal with it. I'm still going to do what I need to do. but boy, it would have been better if it hadn't. Um, it's a recognition that fate may have decreed us to face this particular challenge, but how we step up to it is what's important.
You don't have to be happy about it, but
No,
do
it
you step
helps.
up to do it?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's great.
And he does. I love the brief little poem there. The dire deeds awake, dark is
Hmm.
it eastward. Let horse be bridled, horn be sounded. It's very well. It's very Beowulf in its
The
alliteration.
sort of alliterative verse,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which again is not a surprise.
Right, of course. He knew
But
what he was doing.
yes, he did. I also thought this was interesting, and when he
Hello,
actually finally says, "Now, Gandalf," he says, "What is your
iconic.
counsel, if I would hear it?" And he asks him, "What is your counsel?" When we get to Denethor, we'll see that he doesn't want to listen to anybody.
That's
He
true.
he thinks he knows everything,
Right.
and there's the thing that came to my mind was actually Tolkien's a little bit of his. And again, I hate being preachy. That's kind of why I'm stuttering. It actually made me think of there's a verse in Proverbs chapter 12. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel. Like, well, leave it to Tolkien to figure out how to make that an obvious thing in
Right,
Middle
right.
Earth.
Cool.
But it doesn't have to be out of the. I mean, that's just wisdom. Period.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
I know that I certainly recognize that when I'm at my most foolish is when I think I know everything and I don't want to take anybody's advice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it really is telling that Theoden is willing to hear Gandalf's counsel, and Denethor
And
is most
Denethor will not
clearly
be. Yeah.
will not even come close to it. Um, let's see. I'm trying
You
to
know,
think. Is there anything else? But
well, one of the things that I've always noticed about that whole section is the light and the darkness.
mm-hmm.
Those two
Yeah,
play off each other so
I'm
well,
going
just like OctoWoW.
to the
just like
Scarlet Monastery Cathedral. I'm gonna just switch to Holy spec, so I'm gonna get some
Makes you think of Sam
Holy
in
gear eventually, or hopefully.
Mordor,
at the
looking up at that
crossroads.
star. Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, yeah.
No, I was thinking of
I
when
was
it.
I was thinking of the
That's
crossroads
another
when the
good
light
moment.
shines on the fallen
Yeah.
the
Oh, you're
fallen
thinking of the
head
shaft
of
of
the
light
king.
portion.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. The
But
shaft of
there's
light.
that. There's a couple of references to light. There's a reference to the whiteness.
Yeah.
As Theoden. I can't remember because I don't have it in front of me.
Well, we've
I
got
just remember I just remember several. Light and white come up several times, and then um,
Legolas catches a glint of white.
that was that was it.
Um,
Thank
yep. Then we
you.
also get that the light shone brighter in Theoden's eyes, and we
Mhm,
get that the falling showers gleamed like silver, and the river glittered like shimmering glass when the
exactly.
shaft of sun stabbed down. At the very beginning, the darkness seemed to clear, and through the opening could be seen the patch of shining sky, which made me think of Sam looking up at the star
Right.
in Mordor. And as Theoden
And then
left his chair, a faint light grew in the hall again. I mean,
that's
it's everywhere.
I remember the first time I read Lord of the Rings, and that image especially just stuck with me.
Mm.
Just, you could actually
Hello,
see
Samar. Samar.
as he
Changing and
as, yeah,
tangibly,
it's
measurably changing as the mood of the king changes. Yeah.
right. It's that very medieval notion that the mood of the king is the mood of the kingdom.
Yes, it is.
Very cool stuff, and not to belabor it too much, but he talks about how dark have been his dreams.
Yeah.
Up to that point, he talks about the
Mhm.
darkness in the east in Mordor, and yeah,
Yes,
that
he does.
very powerful imagery, very visual imagery of hope and despair.
Very much so. Yeah. Light and dark, hope and despair, life and death. There's a lot there.
Hmm.
Um, I look at Gandalf's advice, his actual counsel, and it's cast aside regret and fear, trust in the one guy you can trust, not in the man of crooked mind. Do the deed at hand. Do what you must do, and that's really all that's the best counsel we can be given. Do what needs to be done. Trust the right people. Don't regret. Don't fear. Just do it. And if you do that thing successfully, then we'll move on to the next thing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it's not exactly exciting. It doesn't make for great cinema, which is probably why we didn't have that particular line. But it's definitely good,
Practical counsel.
very good counsel. Okay, so now we've read that portion, which was out of the King of the Golden Hall, and I'm gonna humor myself here and allow myself to read one of my favorite passages, but I think it also is relevant to this because it shows now that Theoden is fully renewed, it shows his strength, and then it shows his willingness to maybe necessarily cast away that life. We're going to start near the very end of the chapter, The Ride of the Rohirrim. So here we go.
I love this part too. So,
well, I think
I think everybody does.
Yeah, this is like one of those moments that gives everybody chills. I hope I can
Yeah.
do it justice. I apologize. I am definitely not Rob Inglis here, reading the audiobook. After a while, the king led his men away somewhat eastward to come between the fires of the siege and the outer fields. Still they were unchallenged, and still Theoden gave no signal. At last he halted once again. The city was now nearer. A smell of burning was in the air, and a very shadow of death. The horses were uneasy. But the king sat upon Snowmane, motionless, gazing upon the agony of Minas Tirith, as if stricken suddenly by anguish or by dread. He seemed to shrink down, cowed by age. Merry himself felt as if a great weight of horror and doubt had settled on him. His heart beat slowly. Time seemed poised in uncertainty. They were too late. Too late was worse than never. Perhaps Theoden would quail, bow his old head, turn, slink away to hide in the hills. Then suddenly Merry felt it at last, beyond doubt. A change. Wind was in his face. Light was glimmering. Far, far away in the south, the clouds could be dimly seen as remote gray shapes, rolling up, drifting. Morning lay beyond them. But at that same moment there was a flash, as if lightning had sprung from the earth beneath the city. For a searing second, it stood dazzling, far off, in black and white, its topmost tower like a glittering needle. And then, as the darkness closed again, there came rolling over the fields a great boom. At that sound, the bent shape of the king sprang suddenly erect. Tall and proud he seemed again, and rising in his stirrups, he cried in a loud voice, more clear than any there had ever heard a mortal man achieve before. Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter! Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered, a sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor! With that, he seized a great horn from Guthlaf, his banner-bearer, and he blew such a blast upon it that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain and a thunder in the mountains. Ride now, ride now, ride to Gondor! Suddenly the king cried to Snowmane, and the horse sprang away. Behind him his banner blew in the wind, white horse upon a field of green, but he outpaced it. After him thundered the knights of his house, but he was ever before them. Eomer rode there, the white horsetail on his helm, floating in his speed, and the front of the first Eorid roared like a breaker foaming to the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, and he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. His golden shield was uncovered, and lo, it shone like an image of the sun, and the grass flamed into green about the white feet of his steed. For morning came, morning and a wind from the sea, and darkness was removed, and the hosts of Mordor wailed, and terror took them, and they fled and died, and the hooves of wrath rode over them. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city. Woo.
Well, you gave me chills.
Well, that's a passage. I mean, that's I don't know that you can really botch that one too badly, but there's so much there.
If I recall, it's that passage that leads directly into
Mm-hmm.
the battle with
Yeah.
Theoden and the Witch King.
It does.
Right? Is that immediately at the
The
beginning of the
very
next chapter?
the very next chapter, it was no orc chieftain or brigand that led the assault upon Gondor. Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is that scene,
And then
you know,
Eowyn, which is, I
Dirty
think
Helm.
that those are just some of my favorite pages in the
Mhm.
entire 1,000 pages of Lord of the Rings.
I agree wholeheartedly. One thing that struck me, and I remember mentioning this, I think during book weeks, was I love that he was compared to Orome the Great. Now
I
that
love
we've
that
read the
too.
Silmarillion, it's like, hey, no way. And of course,
I know.
nobody
I
had
know we
read this
haven't
at the
introduced
time.
Orome yet, but he's one of my favorites
Yeah,
of the
definitely,
Valar.
definitely. And he uh, Tolkien mentioning Orome in a context like this where nobody's even heard of who he is
Right,
is
that's true.
brilliant. It's just another one of these things that he's done that adds the depth, that helps you think of this
Secondary belief.
exactly, that helps you see the depth and history present in the world. Obviously, those of you who've read the Silmarillion and you know who Orome is, you get a great image of him and his steed, Nahar, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
And recall also that Orome was really sacred to the Rohirrim as well. They
Oh
called
yeah.
him Bema,
Yeah.
but he was the same one of the Valar.
I believe he's the only one of the Valar for whom they had a separate name, like whom they were familiar with. But
You may be right, yeah.
that may be going too far. I don't know. But again, what we see here is a lot of this light and darkness. We see that moment when he does not succumb to despair, and it's after the boom, the bent shape of the king springs suddenly erect, tall and proud he seemed again. That tall and proud. There's a line in that previous chapter that I read that talks about him being tall and proud. And we're going to see again tall and proud with Denethor. And again, I don't think that's an accident. But it's how things are handled differently. The pride here is different than the pride with Denethor.
Right.
And it's even though they're both, you look at this and they're both almost,
Hello, Fred.
to lack of a better word, suicidal. Here is Theoden acting rashly, going out before his household, before even the whole first Eorad goes out. He is in the very front of the vanguard of the entire army of the Rohirrim, most likely to get himself killed. And he's okay with that. Denethor, certainly, we know, is suicidal in his section.
Right.
But there's a vast difference. One is laying down his life for the others and is willing to sacrifice
exactly
as a leader, and the other is selfishly committing an act because he doesn't want to lead.
Right,
So,
exactly.
and that's such a huge difference.
Theoden is going to make his death count.
Lol, he has a...
And Denethor is willing to needlessly die.
Absolutely.
For nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because he believes in nothing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so sad to see, a man of Gondor, go like that. But I love seeing Theoden's courage here, his bravery, his leadership. And this is what happens when you give up despair and embrace hope. You go into this where you know the odds are against you, and you go into it embracing the knowledge that you may very well die, but you're doing it because it's the absolute right, necessary thing to do. Which is totally different from what we're about to read.
Now you've given us all hope. You've made us all feel very good, and now
I shall give you despair.
Depress us.
Okay,
bring me down. Come on, bring me down.
Well, then you can bring us up with your reading, because I know where you're going. This is
colorful. It's calling Murloc.
And the flame died in his eyes, and he wept. And he said, "Do not take my son from me. He calls for me." "He calls," said Gandalf, "but you cannot come to him yet. For he must seek healing on the threshold of death, and maybe find it not. Whereas your part is to go out to the battle of your city, where maybe death awaits you. This you know in your heart." "He will not wake again," said Denethor. "Battle is vain. Why should we wish to live longer? Why should we not go to death side by side?" "Authority is not given to you, steward of Gondor, to order the hour of your death," answered Gandalf. "And only the heathen kings under the domination of the Dark Power did thus, slaying themselves in pride and despair, murdering their kin to ease their own death." Then, passing through the door, he took Faramir from the deadly house and laid him on the bier on which he had been brought, and which had now been set on the porch. Denethor followed him and stood trembling, looking with longing on the face of his son. And for a moment, while all were silent and still, watching the Lord in his throes, he wavered. "Come," said Gandalf, "we are needed. There is much that you can yet do." Then suddenly Denethor laughed.
I should maybe make myself a warlock as well, so I can just have him standing around random places.
At the table, he lifted from it the pillow on which his head had lain. Then, coming to the doorway, he drew aside the covering, and lo, he had between his hands a palantir. And as he held it up, it seemed to those that looked on that the globe began to glow with an inner flame, so that the lean face of the Lord was lit as with a red fire, and it seemed cut out of hard stone, sharp with black shadows, noble, proud, and terrible. His eyes glittered.
Okay, now we can finally go.
"Pride and despair," he cried. "Didst thou think that the eyes of the White Tower were blind? Nay, I have seen more than thou knowest, grey fool, for thy hope is but ignorance. Go then, and labour in healing. Go forth and fight. Vanity. For a little space you may triumph on the field, for a day, but against the power that now arises there is no victory. To this city only the first finger of its hand has yet been stretched. All the east is moving, and even now the wind of thy hope cheats thee, and wafts up...
I think we need to remake the group in order to not have a raid.
Such counsels will make the enemy's victory certain indeed," said Gandalf. "Hope on, then," laughed Denethor. "Do I not know thee, Mithrandir? Thy hope is to rule in my stead, to stand behind every throne, north, south, or west. I've read thy mind and its policies. Do I not know that this halfling was commanded by thee to keep silence? That he was brought hither to be a spy within my very chamber? And yet in our speech together I have learned the names and purpose of all thy companions. So, with the left hand thou wouldst use me for a little while as a shield against Mordor, and with the right bring up this ranger of the north to supplant me. But I say to thee, Gandalf,
I think there's a bug with with OBS.
the house of Anarion, I will
Because when I've been streaming a while, it starts lagging like crazy.
prove to me. Still he comes but of the line of Isildur. I will not bow to such a one, last of a ragged house, long bereft of lordship and dignity." "What then would you have," said Gandalf, "if your will could have its way?" "I would have things as they were in all the days of my life," answered Denethor, "and in the days of my long fathers before me, to be the lord of this city in peace, and leave my chair to my son after me, who would be his own master, and no wizard's pupil. But if doom denies this to me, then I will have naught, neither life diminished, nor love halved, nor honor abated. And to me it would not seem that a steward who faithfully surrenders his
Did he die?
honor," said Gandalf. "And at the least you shall not rob your son of his choice, while his death is still in doubt." At those words Denethor's eyes flamed again, and taking the stone under his arm, he drew a knife and strode towards the bier. But Baragon sprang forward and set himself before Faramir. "So," cried Denethor, "thou hadst already stolen half my son's love. Now thou stealest the hearts of my knights also, so that they rob me wholly of my son at the last. But in this at least thou shalt not defy my will to rule my own end. Come hither," he cried to his servants. "Come, if ye are not all recreant." Then 2 of them ran up the steps to him. Swiftly he snatched a torch from the hand of one and sprang back into the house. Before Gandalf could hinder him, he thrust the brand amid the fuel, and at once it crackled and roared into flame. Then Denethor leaped upon the table.
I guess I need to make myself a streaming PC that I connect to my gaming PC.
On his knee. Casting the pieces into the blaze, he bowed and laid himself on the table, clasping the palantir with both hands upon his breast. And it was said that ever after, if any man looked in that stone, unless he had a great strength of will to turn it to other purpose, he saw only 2 aged hands withering in flame. Gandalf, in grief and horror, turned his face away and closed the door. For a while he stood in thought, silent upon the threshold, while those outside heard the greedy roaring of the fire within. And then Denethor gave a great cry, and afterwards spoke no more, nor was ever again seen by mortal men. So passes Denethor, son of Ecthelion, said Gandalf. And that is the vast difference between hope and despair. And it's so painfully clear. It you hope for him. You lose hope pretty quickly, but you hope for him when that moment when he says, when all were silent and still, watching the Lord in his throes, he wavered. And you just think maybe, just maybe. And Theoden had that moment, and he went the other way. And that makes all the difference.
Right.
Hope and despair make all the difference. Hope leads to life, despair to death. Painful.
And there's so much contrast between the two.
Aren't there? Yeah.
There's even down to the fact that Theoden dies in motion, riding out to battle. Denethor dies locked up in
hiding from battle.
He's
really
hiding from battle. Yeah.
And
it's incredible.
It really is, and it's heartbreaking to see the leader of the free men do that. And you can certainly look and say, well, the Palantir had a lot to do with it, and yes, the Palantir had a lot to do with it. But clearly, there was enough of the wrong kind of pride in Denethor. That's what led to his usage of the Palantir in the first place.
Right.
He was never supposed to use that.
It was something that was always above him. And
well, he was the steward, not the king,
Right. And there was you see a general decline in the people of Gondor. Faramir is a rare exception. We're explicitly told that Faramir, he has something of the air of Numenor about him, more so than his father's.
Yeah.
And you really see this sort of general decline of Gondor over time.
Yeah.
That Denethor is so indicative of, and wow, it's great. I've got chills again, but they're not the good kind.
Well, and I just want to add one last little bit to this. I notice as I read these even tonight, I recognize there's another thing that goes with hope.
Ooh, I can play on my laptop and use my gaming PC as a streaming PC. That should work.
People of Gondor, as he makes this sacrifice.
Oh, that's venomous.
He knows that what he does here will have a lasting impact in whether or not they can defeat the forces of Sauron.
Right.
Denethor is purely selfish as can be. He's not thinking that way. He says he is. He talks about how it's his job to look out for the rule of Gondor, but
all he wants is just for his life to be the same as it's always been.
Exactly.
For
That's
Gondor,
the key, isn't it?
He wants to pass the throne to his son, but not certainly not for his son's sake.
Well, right, and only to his son, who would be his own master and no wizard's pupil.
Right?
And that's
in which there's that subtle jab at Faramir, who
not so subtle.
Yeah, true. So he just all he wants is everything that he's just sort of I don't know if resisting the future is that seems to kind of undermine it a little bit. But
he knows that one way or the other, his rule of power is over. Whether it's because Sauron defeats him, or whether it's because they defeat Sauron and Aragorn becomes king.
Aragorn takes the throne. Yeah.
In either situation, his power is done, and he doesn't want to accept that. And
he doesn't care at that point. He's like, it's not my city anymore. So,
well, and he doesn't even hand the staff of stewardship over to somebody else before he commits this act. He breaks it in half and throws it into the fire with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think. There's one last little bit here, and going back to Gandalf, in the movie, the line is, "Authority is not given to you, steward of Gondor, to deny the return of the king."
Mm-hmm.
But here, it's authority is not given to you, steward of Gondor, to order the hour of your death. Mm-hmm. And I think Gandalf's position here, reflecting probably Tolkien's value system, is that it's not up to us, because life for men, certainly. Is a gift of Iluvatar, just as death is a gift of Iluvatar, and it's not up to us to open that gift early, or in the case of Ar-Pharazôn, to try to deny the gift altogether.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
I can't
and
wait till we get to him.
I know, boy, isn't that going to be a fun chapter? And it was, I have to say, it was really tempting for me to touch on that instead, to forget about this stuff and to move on to Farazan and the fall of the men of Numenor. But since we will be getting there in, well, I don't know, sometime in the next year, I figure I'd touch on this because we won't be getting to this for quite a while. So,
True. Very true.
what do you have?
Well, so you were quite well we a good way through Return of the King at this point. Let's put it
Yes,
that
we
way.
are just near the
And
very end.
I'm taking us to the very end.
Hmm.
So I'm actually going to read from the tale of Aragorn and Arwen
Oh, the appendices.
from the appendices, right? So this is from Appendix A. There's I think what A
Hmm.
through F or A through G appendices at the end of Return of the King.
F, A through
And
F, yeah.
is it F? Yeah. Tolkien does a really good job of keeping the courtship of Aragorn and Arwen pretty secret in the main narrative. It you really
Hmm.
blink and you miss it. Actually, there's a few clues, but if you're not paying attention, you can very well miss it.
Well, that's
But
okay. Peter Jackson and company got it for sure.
they did absolutely, and that's part of why I chose this story because I think everyone listening knows the story.
Hmm.
The movies did such a good job of weaving the story into the films.
Hmm.
Obviously, they didn't have the luxury of an appendix to stick it in, but because I think most of the audiences, our audience listening, is familiar with it, and it's in an appendix, I felt like it didn't really have any major spoilers for the book if you've seen
Sure.
the movies and know the
Well, yeah.
basic ending. So
Yeah, I
it's a
think
good
we have to
standalone.
assume most folks have.
Hey guys, I need to stop the stream. This is crazy what's going on right now. So see you guys later.
I think we'll safely assume that most folks have read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and have probably seen them.